Good evening, welcome to What News. I am Wisdom Onyisi. First, the headlines. National Economic Council of Nigeria to brainstorm on 32 states report on state police. Australia, Japan criticize China for dangerous acts towards Philippines. US to spend $7.3 billion on rural clean energy projects. And on sports, Villa ready to pay €250 for Brazil forward Nunes. Now the news in details. The National Economic Council has threatened to enforce its decision on states that have not yet submitted their report on state police. President Bola Tinubu had in February endorsed the establishment of state police as suggested by state governors to address rising insecurity in the country. States were instructed to submit their report for NEC, deliberation and action. However, following a NEC meeting chaired by Vice President Kashim Shettima at the presidential villa in Abuja on Wednesday, acting Oyo State Governor Bayo Lawal disclosed that 4 states had yet to submit their report. In a resolution, NEC gave the affected states until Monday to provide their report or face the consequences of the council's decision. The states in question are Kwara, Sokoto, Kebbi, Adamawa, and the Federal Capital Territory. Away from that, the National Information Technology Development Agency NITDA has warned Nigerians regarding a critical security vulnerability identified in the Google Chrome browser, while advising all Google Chrome users to immediately update their browsers to the latest version to prevent falling a prey to cyber hackers. NITDA, through its Emergency Readiness and Response Team, claims that Google found this vulnerability, which has been assigned the code CVE 2024-797, while warning that cyber criminals are actively using it to target individuals online. According to the agency, the flaw, classified as a type confusion vulnerability, is located within Chrome's V8 JavaScript engine, which plays a crucial role in how the browser handles JavaScript files. The vulnerability arises from the browser's misinterpretation of data types, leading to memory corruption. This, in turn, could allow attackers to run harmful programs on devices that have not yet been updated to the latest version of Chrome. Let's also have you know that at least 31 persons have been reported dead and 5,280 houses destroyed by flood across 21 local government areas of Kano State. The Executive Secretary of the State Emergency Management Agency, Isiaku Kubarachi, made this known while speaking to newsmen on Wednesday. He said 31,818 people have been affected and 5,280 houses have been destroyed by the flood. The disaster has also led to the destruction of 2,518 farmland, covering 976 hectares of land, and 31 lives were lost. Kubarachi added that the disaster was as a result of heavy downpours, adding that most of the affected houses were mud houses, siting along waterways. Now, when we return, news from other parts of Africa. Stay with us.
This is Hillstv. Quality broadcasting is what we'll bring to you. Now we be this
Welcome back. Now, news from other parts of Africa. The Chinese president welcomed African leaders in Beijing Wednesday for a summit aimed at strengthening ties at a time of strained relations with the West. President Xi Jinping and his wife Peng Luyuan hosted a banquet Wednesday evening in the Great Hall of the People in central Beijing to welcome leaders for the 2024 summit of the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation. During the three-day summit, leaders of some 50 African countries will discuss cooperation over the next few years on areas including agriculture, security, and industrialization. Bilateral meetings took place Wednesday between Xi and leaders from South Africa, Djibouti, and Cameroon, among others. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres was present at the summit as a special guest. After years of being Africa's largest trading partner and investor, China has bolstered its relationship with African countries to counter the United States and European influence in developing regions or the global South. We also have you know that the Mpox outbreak continues to spread in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, leaving patients at a clinic in Kamatunga anxiously awaiting vaccines. The officials in charge of the response to the Mpox outbreak in the Democratic Republic of Congo announced on Wednesday that the country is set to receive its first shipment of Mpox vaccine doses on Thursday, followed by a second shipment on Saturday. For weeks, Congo has been awaiting shipment of the Mpox vaccine, with the first batch set to arrive in Kinshasa on Thursday, a considerable distance from the Eastern Congo hotspot. The recent outbreak led to a global emergency declaration by the World Health Organization on August 14. We also have you know that a former top official at South African state-owned passenger railway company received a 15-year concurrent prison sentence on Tuesday for faking his engineering qualification and other cases of fraud. Daniel Ntukulu, 49 years, resigned as the head of engineering at the Passenger Rail Agency of South Africa, or PRASA, shortly before he was arrested in 2015. He was convicted of 3 counts of fraud and forgery in 2022 over fake university qualification and a forged job offer from a rival company that resulted in executives at PRASA nearly doubling his salary to keep him. Ntukulu was sentenced to 15 years for the first count of fraud and 6 years in prison for each of the other 2 counts. A judge at the Special Commercial Crimes Court in Johannesburg ordered that the sentences be served concurrently. As PRASA's head of engineering, Ntukulu was behind a deal worth more than $100 million to buy dozens of new train locomotives from Spain, which were then found to be too tall for South Africa's rail network and couldn't be used. The big money contract was one of the several at PRASA that have been linked with alleged bribes and kickbacks. Investigators have said there was rampant corruption and mismanagement of some of the South Africa's biggest state-owned businesses between 2009 and 2018. A report last week by a special unit that is investigating high-level corruption said that more than $7 billion may have been lost to graft at some of those state-owned companies, including PRASA. Now we move to other parts of the world after this break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Now news from other parts of the world. Australia and Japan on Thursday criticized China for what they called dangerous and coercive acts against the Philippines in the South China Sea. They expressed serious concern over recent development in the South China Sea, including an intensification of China's dangerous and coercive activities towards the Philippines, which have occurred with high frequency. The two countries said in a joint statement after a meeting of their foreign and defense ministers in Hillstv. The statement added that the two countries also agreed to continue discussion on how to involve Japan in the AUKUS security alliance consisting of Australia, the United States, and Great Britain. Let's also have you know that a spokesperson for Prime Minister Gary Conille said Haiti has expanded its state of emergency to cover the entire nation's territory as the Caribbean country battles violent gangs that have taken over much of the capital and started expanding into nearby regions. Haiti, Populous Quest Department, where the capital Port-au-Prince is located, was put under a state of emergency on March 3rd under the administration of Colonel predecessor Errol Harry, as a dramatic escalation in violence paralyzed the capital and thousands of inmates escaped into prison breaks. The state of emergency was repeatedly renewed and other departments were later added, including the famine region of Artibonite that has suffered some of the worst violence, the Central Department, and Nepos on the southern peninsula. Earlier on Wednesday, Colonel said he had helped distribute materials and weapons for the Haitian army and national police in order to recover territories taken by gangs. The announcement comes a day ahead of planned visit to the Caribbean nation by U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken. We also have you know that good progress is being made in rolling out a polio vaccine to children in Gaza, but a permanent ceasefire in the 11th month worries needed to ease humanitarian suffering, the main UN agency for Palestinians said on Wednesday. UNRWA said that 3 days into the campaign in areas of central Gaza, around 187,000 children had received the vaccine. The campaign will move to other areas of the Palestinian enclave for the second stage. The campaign was prompted by the recovery of a case of polio in a baby boy last month, the first in Gaza Strip for 25 years. Israel and Hamas militants agreed to daily pauses of 8 hours in the fighting in specified areas to allow the vaccination program. No violations have been reported. Palestinians say big reasons for the return of polio is the collapse of Gaza's health system and the destruction of most of its hospitals during the war. Israel accuses Hamas of using hospitals for military purposes, something the Islamist group denies. Up next is business. Stay with us. Welcome back now to business news. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres said on Thursday that African countries' inadequate access to debt relief and scarce resources is a recipe for social unrest, proposing fresh reforms to the international financial architecture. A growing debt crisis across the 1 billion-strong continent has seen a conflagration of civil unrest in recent months after protests in Kenya, where police clashed with demonstrators rallying against proposed tax hikes, inspired people to take to the street in Nigeria and Uganda over the cost of living. Africa nations have been seeking to restructure their debts through a rework architecture designed by the G20 called the Common Framework, but the scheme did not, as expected, expedite talks between a myriad of leaders from Chinese state-owned banks to London-based asset managers and New York banks. Zambia in June became the first country to successfully restructure its debt through the scheme, more than 3 years after it defaulted on its loan. China approved loans worth $4.61 billion to Africa last year, the first annual increase since 2016, Angola's finance minister said that Luanda was considering proposals from Beijing, Brussels, and elsewhere, with a view to quickly securing funds to help bring down inflation and do more through public-private partnership. Still on business news, President Xi Jinping pledged on Thursday to step up Chinese support to Africa, the world's second fastest growing continent, with funding of nearly $51 billion backing for more infrastructure initiatives and a promise to create at least 1 million jobs. The world's biggest two-way lender, Beijing, showed a desire to move away from funding big-ticket infrastructure and focus instead on selling to development economics the advanced and green technologies in which Chinese firms have invested heavily. Still, Xi told delegates from more than 50 African nations that the world's second-largest economy will carry out 30 infrastructure projects across the resource-rich continent and offer 360 billion yuan, that is $50.70 billion in financial assistance. China is ready to deepen cooperation with Africa in industry, agriculture, infrastructure, trade, and investment, Xi told delegates at a major China-Africa summit in Beijing. Still on business news, where we have you know that the World Bank's board has approved a $68 million program to prevent Pacific Island nations from being cut off from the international financial system that underpins tourism, trade, and aid flow. The lender's president, Ajay Banga, said on Thursday, access to the global financial system is paramount for several small island economies at risk of losing access to US dollars and euros as Western banks exit the region. Bangal met the leaders of Tonga, Fuji, Nauru, Marshall Islands, and Federated States of Micronesia in Suva. Bank's officials said the announcement would be made on Friday. He is the first World Bank chief to visit Fiji in 50 years. Still to come is sport. Stay with us. Welcome back now to Sport News. Aston Villa have made a move for Brazil international and Levanter forward Gabi Nunes. They will need to trigger a release clause of €300,000, I beg your pardon, that is €250,000 to sign the 27-year-old. Nunes, who has 22 caps for Brazil, was part of the squad that won a silver medal at the Olympic Games in Paris. Villa have already made 7 signings this summer and are investing heavily following the arrival of new manager Robert Del Pau. If they were to bring in Nunes, it will be a statement of their intent to challenge the WSL's traditional top 4, Chelsea, Manchester City, Arsenal, and Manchester United. Nunes' arrival at Villa would be a club record feel and would sit up there with some of the biggest transfers in WSL history. Still on sport news, Tottenham forward Kate Graham is set to miss the entire season after suffering her second anterior cruciate ligament injury in just over 2 years. The 28-year-old injured the ACL in her left knee in pre-season training. In November 2022, she injured an ACL in a Women's Super League match against West Ham that kept her out until March 2023. She played 18 league games for Spurs last term and helped her side reach the FA Cup final, which they lost to Manchester United. The 2024-2025 WSL season kicks off on 20th September, with Spurs' first game coming 2 days later at home to Crystal Palace. Let's move over to cricket, where we'll have you know that England captain Jos Buttler has been ruled out of the three-match 2020 series against Australia and is earmarked for the 5 one-day internationals that follows. Buttler, 33 years, has not played since the T20 World Cup in June because of a calf injury. In his absence, Phil Sart will captain England for the first time in the T20s, while Harry Brooks is in line to step up if needed in the ODIs. The T20 series began Wednesday in Southampton, with the ODIs starting on 19 September. The visit of Australia is England's first white ball assignment since they lost in the semi-finals of the T20 World Cup. Head coach Matthew Mott has since left, but Buttler remained as captain after a renew by managing director Rob Keel. Marcus Trescontic is England's interim white ball coach for the Australia series and the tour of the West Indies in November. Still on sport news and on tennis, where we have you know that world number 1 Jannik Sinner beat former champion Daniil Medvedev in a Turkey US Open match to set up a semi-final against Jack Drasper. Italy, Sinner was a 6-2, 1-6, 6-1, 6-4 winner over the Russian 5th seed in New York. Sinner, who won the Australian Open in January, and Medvedev, well, the only 2 major champions left in the men's draw, and the match between them was highly anticipated. However, neither men were able to find their best tennis at the same time. Medvedev, a beaten finalist at Flushing Meadows last year and in 2019, hit 6 doubles fought and spread 57 unforced errors, while Sinner was not at his most accurate. He was far superior on serve, closing out victory in 2 hours and 39 minutes. Sinner will now face his occasional doubles partner Draper in Friday's semi-final. And that's your sport news on What News. We move to the rest of the news after this break. Stay with us.
This is Hillstv. Quality broadcasting is what we'll bring to you. Now we be this
Welcome back. Now the rest of the news. President Joe Biden's administration on Thursday said the U.S. will spend $7.3 billion from 2022's Inflation Reduction Act to fund clean energy projects hemmed by rural electric cooperatives. The sustained-funded projects will reduce energy costs and increase reliability for rural Americans who tend to pay more for energy, the White House said. The first project will allocate nearly $573 million to Dairyland Power Cooperatives in La Crosse, Wisconsin, for 4 solar installations and 4 wind power installations in Wisconsin's Lower Minnesota and Illinois. The project, funded by the IRA's Engineering Empowering Rural America program, will prevent more than 43 million tons of greenhouse gas pollution annually and support more than 4,500 permanent jobs and 16,000 construction jobs, the White House revealed. Rural electric cooperatives serve 42 million people, according to the National Rural Electric Cooperative Association. The administration in August said it was investing $2.2 billion in overhauling the nation's power grid, which has been pressured by extreme weather events, even as data centers demand more power. Biden was set to announce the funding in West by Wisconsin on Thursday alongside Will Sack. And that's what news. But before we go, here are the headlines. Once again, we told you that Nigeria National Economic Council to brainstorm on 32 states report on state police. We brought to you that Australia, Japan criticized China for dangerous acts towards Philippines. And we informed you that US to spend $7.3 billion on rural clean energy projects. And on sport, Villa ready to pay €250 for Brazil forward Nunes. Remember to visit us on Facebook at Hillstv Abuja, Instagram at Hillstv Abuja, and subscribe to our YouTube channel at Hillstv. I am Wisdom Onyisi. Thanks for watching.